Picture this. Your town is occupied by soldiers. One night they open fire on a crowd of your neighbors and kill 5 of them. The entire town wants those soldiers to hang. There are posters. There's a famous engraving. Everybody already knows they're guilty. And then the best lawyer in the colony, a man who genuinely hates that these soldiers are even here, stands up and agrees to defend them, in court, for free. His name was John Adams, and in a few years he'd help write a little thing called the United States of America. So why would a founding father defend the enemy who just shot his own people? Because he believed in something that would turn out to be the whole point of the country he was about to help build. Let's talk about the Boston Massacre trial. So it's 1770 in Boston, and Boston is not happy. For a couple of years now, British soldiers, redcoats, have been stationed right in the middle of the city, sent to keep the increasingly rowdy colonists in line. Picture armed soldiers standing on your street corners every single day, enforcing taxes you never voted for. Tensions are, let's say, high. There are fistfights. There's name-calling. The soldiers are resented, taunted, and shoved. The colonists are watched, taxed, and pushed around. It is a powder keg, and everybody can feel that something is about to snap. And on the cold night of March 5th, 1770, something does. It starts small, the way these things always do. A crowd gathers outside the custom house where a single British sentry is standing guard, and they start heckling him. Then it grows. Snowballs, chunks of ice, oyster shells, sticks, a mob of dozens, maybe hundreds, closing in and screaming at a small group of terrified soldiers who've come to back the sentry up. Someone yells, "Fire!" To this day, nobody is completely sure who. And the soldiers fire into the crowd. When the smoke clears, 5 colonists are dead or dying. Among them, a man named Crispus Attucks, a dock worker of African and native descent, often remembered as the first man to die for the American Revolution. 5 dead, and a city that is now absolutely out for blood. Now here's where it gets surprisingly modern, because what happens next isn't really about the law yet, it's about the story. A silversmith named Paul Revere, yes, that Paul Revere, produces an engraving of the scene, and it is pure propaganda. In his version, the soldiers are calmly lined up, firing on command into a peaceful, innocent crowd. No mob, no snowballs, just cold-blooded murder. It spreads through the colonies like wildfire. Samuel Adams and the other agitators seize on it, and they even call it a massacre. Honestly, brilliant branding. By the time anyone sets foot in a courtroom, the entire public has already reached its verdict. The soldiers are guilty. Everyone knows it. Case closed. Except it isn't. And this is the part that should honestly give you chills. Because into all of that, into a town that has already made up its mind, into headlines and posters screaming for a hanging, walks John Adams. 34 years old, a patriot to his bones. His own cousin is the man running the anti-British propaganda machine. And Adams agrees to be the defense lawyer for the soldiers everyone wants dead. He later said he risked his reputation, his law practice, even his own safety to do it. So why on earth would he? Adams's answer came down to a single idea, one that barely existed in practice yet, but that he believed in completely. He thought that a person, any person, no matter how hated, no matter how obviously guilty everyone assumes they are, deserves a real defense and a fair trial. That guilt should be decided by evidence in a courtroom, not by a mob in the street or a poster on a wall. To Adams, if the colonists were going to stand up and claim they believed in liberty and justice, then they had to prove it on the hardest possible case, by giving a fair trial to the very soldiers who had just killed their neighbors. Because anybody can give a fair trial to someone they like. The real test is the person you hate. So they actually do it. They hold real trials with real rules. First up is the officer in charge, Captain Thomas Preston. And the whole case against him comes down to one question. Did he give the order to fire? Because if he never said fire, he can't be guilty of ordering murder. And the witnesses, surprise, completely contradict each other. Some swear he gave the command. Others swear he was standing in front of the guns, which is not exactly where a sane officer stands when he's ordering a volley. The evidence is a mess. And a mess, legally speaking, means doubt. The jury acquits Captain Preston. That's one. Now come the 8 soldiers themselves. And this is where Adams says the thing he'll be remembered for. Defending the soldiers, Adams doesn't deny that 5 people died. He can't. Instead, he asks the jury to do the single hardest thing there is in a moment like that, to set aside how they feel and look only at what actually happened. He argues the soldiers were surrounded, outnumbered, pelted, and genuinely afraid for their lives, that any reasonable person standing in that spot might have fired too. And then he says it. Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passions, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence. Translation: it does not matter how badly you want them to be guilty. The facts don't care about your feelings. Decide on the evidence, or you're not doing justice. You're just doing revenge. So put yourself on that jury for a second. Your neighbors are dead. Your entire town is watching you, and your entire town wants a hanging. And the most respected lawyer in the colony has just looked you dead in the eye and told you to set your anger aside and follow the facts wherever they lead. That is a genuinely hard thing to ask of human beings. So, did it work? Were the colonists actually able to give the enemy a fair shake? They were. The jury comes back and the verdict is careful, almost surgical. 6 of the 8 soldiers are found not guilty, flat out. The other 2, the ones the evidence actually placed firing directly into the crowd, are found guilty, but not of murder, of manslaughter, a lesser charge reflecting that they'd acted in the heat of a terrifying moment, rather than with cold intent. And instead of hanging, those 2 are branded on the thumb with a hot iron and released. Given the mood of that city, this is a genuinely stunning outcome. A Boston jury, a packed courtroom, dead neighbors just outside. And they followed the evidence instead of the mob. Adams was right. It worked. And here's why a 250-year-old trial still matters. Because the principle Adams was fighting for, that everyone gets a defense, that guilt is proven with evidence and not just assumed from outrage, became bedrock. It's the presumption of innocence. It's reasonable doubt. It's the right to a lawyer even when you are the most hated defendant in the room. An idea that would eventually be written straight into the Constitution he helped bring about. And Adams, looking back near the end of his life, called defending those soldiers one of the best pieces of service I ever rendered my country. Not winning independence, not being president. This, proving that a free country has to give a fair trial to the people it despises the most. And that tension is not some dusty history book relic. It is everywhere right now. Every single time the internet decides someone is guilty before a trial. Every time an online mob knows the verdict before a shred of evidence has been heard. Every time we're tempted to say, this person is obviously guilty, why do they even get a lawyer? We are standing in the exact same spot Boston stood in 1770. And John Adams already handed us the answer. Facts are stubborn things. The entire point of the system is that it has to hold even, especially, when your feelings are screaming at you to skip it. Because the fair trial you deny your enemy is the very same one that protects you. So this 4th of July, while we're all celebrating the fireworks and the founding, this is the story I keep coming back to. Before there was even a country, one deeply unpopular lawyer stood up in front of his own furious neighbors and defended the men they hated the most, because he believed that a nation which couldn't give the enemy a fair trial had no business calling itself free. That idea is as American as anything else on the calendar. Quick note, this is legal history and commentary for educational purposes. It is not legal advice, and I am very much not your attorney. If you like this one, tell me which case to break down next. Happy 4th.